What is going on, Facebook? Hopefully, you are having an amazing day. I'm going to pull this up on my phone real quick. Actually, I'll be right back. And I'm back. Sorry about that. I needed my headphones to make sure that this is going to go right. As I am watching this, it looks like people are just starting to tune in. Marilyn, nice to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'll hold this up here so I can chat at the same time. Debbie, nice to see you. As you're tuning in, love to know, number one, where you're tuning in from. Number two, I'd love to know three things you are grateful for out there in Facebook world. Hopefully you like my awesome blue chair. I feel very nice in this chair. It's snowing outside and beautiful right now here in Vail, Colorado. Let's see. I see that number ticking up. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As you're tuning in, I'd love to know, number one, where you're tuning in from. Number two, I'd love to know three things you're grateful for right down there in the chat section or over there on the computer, depending on where you're watching. I'd love to know, real quick, is the audio working? Because I know the last couple times I did this, y'all could not hear me. Let me double check on my side. Yep, sounds like it's working. Very cool. This is an interesting topic. I'll set this down for a second, just chit chat with y'all. I'll come back. So as you're just tuning in, I see the number ticking up. Just real quick, number one, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Number two, I'd love to know three things you're grateful for in your life and world. Brian, nice to see you. Francine, your audio works. Thank you. Chris, what's up, buddy? Audio is working. Awesome. Today we're talking about something that is really interesting. I was working with a client, Krista from New Brunswick. Oh no, Kayla. I'm so sorry, I read it wrong. What's up, Kayla? How are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see. James from Tampa. What's up, buddy? Nice to see you. Welcome. Meg from Wisconsin. Grateful for my health, my kids, my friend John. Very cool. Well, thank you for joining. Nice to see you. Welcome back. So as you all are tuning in, again, just for the newcomers, one more time, love to know, number one, where you're tuning in from. Number two, love to know three things you are grateful for today. I always ask that question, not so much for my sake, but I want you to train your brain to scan the world around you and look for things that you're grateful for. Why? Because science and research shows that when you do that, you tend to become a happier, more productive human being. Let's see, Debbie Drew, nice to see you, Debbie. Welcome. I'm grateful that I'm not in any pain. Oh, Patty, nice to see you from Toronto. Grateful for catching up with old friends, new opportunities, catching this live Facebook with you. Very nice. Georgina, hey. Welcome from Australia. Grateful for my health, my hairdresser, my phone, my fresh water I have access to. Kayla says grateful for my life, my kids, nature. Very, very nice. So we will jump in. As more people are sharing, I'll go back and read those in just a minute. But as just real simple topic, curiosity and how important it is. It is such a crucial element of life. And it can make or break relationships because so often something that tends to happen to most people is when we start communicating with other people, whether it's a business partner, whether it's a friend, whether it's a romantic partner, whether it's even your kids, your family. So often what tends to happen is in our minds, we start to assume. And write that down. If you're going to write a note down, write down assumption is the death of relationships for the most part. Because what happens is we start to assume that they believe what we believe. They think like we do. They have the same rules and guidelines and organizing principles that we do. And what happens, oh, hold on one second. We have a visitor. Let me go see who it is. I'll be right back. And I'm back. Sorry about that. I'm learning the activity of the day. Seems kind of fun. A Colorado ski museum. Pretty nifty. Anyways, welcome back. We're talking about curiosity and how important it is. Oh, let's see. Maryland, Denver, grateful for your dad and all the positivity tools you guys share. Grateful for my daughter and all the many travel adventures we've been on to go on. Wonderful. Who's at the door? No, it's not Tony. It was someone giving me the activity of the day for tomorrow here in Vail. Let's see. So curiosity. So often we get into relationships with friends, family, business partners, romantic relationships, and what happens is as we start to connect with people, we start to assume they think like us, they believe what we believe, and they have certain rules or expectations just like we do. And so often, these are the things that can literally tear down our relationship because we just assume and we act on our assumption. So, you're getting to know somebody, and let's say it's a romantic relationship. You want to know certain things. And let's start. I'd love to open up in the comments here, and I'd love to see what you believe. What are some key things you'd want to know when getting into a romantic relationship? What do you want to know what they think about? What are their beliefs about stuff? Now, one big area, which we talked about just a couple days ago with my wife, we talked about how important getting to know someone's financial beliefs are. Let's say you believe you're supposed to save every penny, and they believe you're supposed to live big and have the most fun you could possibly have, and they want to spend all the money on adventure. Now, that can create a very interesting situation, especially if one person decides to be in charge of finances. Or let's think one person believes we're supposed to split everything down the middle, and the other person believes no. This person or that person, the man or the woman is supposed to pay for everything. Or the man's supposed to pay for these things and the woman's supposed to pay for these things. Those are good things to know up front. So let's see. Rob says, I'd love to know how compatible they believe we are. It's a good thing to know. Absolutely. But what other things would you really want to know about that person? And there's a concept which I learned from a lady named Allison Armstrong. She says so often what we do is we tell ourselves that we're trying to find the one. And when we're looking for the one, we start to act like a different version of ourselves. Now, one of my friends shared this with me. She says, we go and meet people and we know what we're looking for. And I give you a little tip. Instead of looking for what you're trying to get from them or what they look like or what they're all about or what you want to experience from them, focus on what you want to give to them and what hopefully they appreciate your gifts. Now, that's important for long term because, according to the researchers, as we get older as men, for those of you who are men who are watching, we tend to have like one gift we want to share with the world, whether that's our humor, our love, our attention, our affection, the way we communicate, whether that's, the ability to protect and provide or care for the people we love, whatever that is. What lands up happening is that's the one gift we want to constantly share. So you want to find someone who values receiving that gift because there'd be nothing worse in the world. Well, there's probably something worse, but it'd be pretty bad to land up in a relationship where the one gift you want to give, the person can't stand it when you share that. Oh my God, again? Really? Can't you just give it up? Well, can't you get another interest? Could you imagine? The one thing you want to share with them, they have no interest in or they get annoyed by it? Ouch. And so that concept is you really want to make sure as you get older, you figure out what is that one thing you want to share with the world, and you find someone who really values that. And hopefully, whatever their one thing is, you value that too. That'd be a great match. It'd really link up there if you loved receiving their humor and they loved receiving your physical affection, or they loved receiving your knowledge or thoughts or great jokes or whatever it is you believe is your thing to share with the world. And it's a very simple way to link up. Now, with that, though, going back to curiosity, even if you have your one thing you want to share and they have their one thing they want to share and it perfectly matches, you also want to know, though, what the world do they believe about certain things? And certain things would be really important. Like, let me give you an example, something we were talking about earlier today, which is interesting. The concept of what does your future significant other believe about family? Are they supposed to live with you when they get older? How long are you supposed to financially take care of your other family members? um, if you have a boy and a girl, do you treat them differently or do you always treat them the same? Now, these are some curious things, and most of us will go, well, of course it's this way. Of course you're supposed to take care of your family. Of course. And then you think about it for a second and say, wait a minute. I have a friend whose grandfather passed away, and it's really beautiful because their dad flew over to where their mom lived and brought grandma to now live with them. And now it's mom, dad, and grandma, and then my friend who lives there some of the time. And it's like, seems cool enough, unless your significant other doesn't feel okay with your mom or dad living with you. Or you don't feel comfortable with their mom or dad. So it's an interesting concept. You might want to talk this through in the beginning. And these are some interesting things. Or, going back to that money concept. Who's supposed to pay for what and why? I have some friends where it's really interesting where, and I've seen this happen in all different ways, but it's a very interesting discussion where some people won't even say it. They just believe in the back of their heads, once we're married, here's how the money's supposed to go. And they just believe it. And the other person believes the exact opposite. And I'll give you an example. I have a few friends who believe, that they were brought up in a way where it's very traditional, they call it. And it says, a man is supposed to take care of the woman. I'm like, that's interesting. Sounds normal for the most part here in the U.S. It's like, okay. But I have other friends who are guys who are like, nah, we're supposed to split everything down the middle. Like, okay, that sounds normal too. And I have other friends, which is really interesting, that say, no, I'd kind of like a woman who could take care of me if she needed to. Like, that's interesting too. So that's a big concept. Like, who's supposed to take care of who? And some people are like, no, we're supposed to both work as hard as we can, throw as much as we can in the middle, and then figure out what to do with it. Now, here's a big question. Even if you have that concept, how do you decide what to do with it? And who gets to decide? And what if you disagree? Very interesting concept there. Now, what's interesting, though, is we have these preconceptions of how it's supposed to be based on where we grew up. How do I know this? Because when I went and lived over in Uganda, I remember I was sitting down one day, and there was I was 20 years old, and there's other kids hanging out with me from the school. And one of the kids walked up, and he looked at me, and he's like, are you married? I was 20. I was like, no. He's like, why not? You're rich. You should have a wife, or maybe two. And I remember at 20 years old being like, rich? And I was like, compared to what? Like, not really. I'm a volunteer over here, but I'm not like rich. I mean, I'm rich in life, in heart and spirit, but not financially in that way at that point in my life. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, you're from America, so obviously you're rich. And if you, I mean, and I said, what qualifies as rich? And he says, well, do you have enough food? I was like, yeah. He's like, do you have enough clothes? Yeah. Do you have a place you live? I'm like, yeah. He's like, great, you should have a wife. Maybe two. And I remember looking at him and be like, what an interesting assumption. And that's what, there was a local belief in that village. It's a rural farming village. So it's not the main city or anything, but a rural farming village. That was the belief. I said, really? So I remember I wanted to get to know more of what they thought about in this way. So, welcome everyone who just tuned in. I'd love to know, number one, where you're tuning in from. Number two, I'd love to know 3 things you're grateful for. Right down there in the comment section. It was really interesting. So I went and met the chief of the village. And I think at that time he had like 7 wives and 14 or 15, 16 kids. And I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. And so I asked him, I said, well, how do you decide how many wives you have? And he says, here, you can have as many wives as you can feed and as many children as you can feed and take care of. And I'm like, what an interesting circumstance. And I said, interesting. What a different set of beliefs. A whole different foundational system of how relationships are supposed to work. And I was like, well, that's really interesting. Not right, wrong, good, bad, or indifferent. Just interesting. It's different. And I remember we were visiting over in Kuwait. And when we were in Kuwait, Kimber from Salt Lake City, nice to see you. When we were in Kuwait, I remember I asked, and I don't remember the exact number, but they were allowed there to have 2 or 3 wives or 4 or something like that, so a range. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. And I said, well, how, what's the rules? Are there rules of how you have to treat them? Because in Uganda, as long as you could feed them and clothe them and take care of them, shelter them, you could have as many as you want. And I was like, but here in Kuwait, like, what's the rules? And they said, well, here's the rules. If you have more than one wife, you must treat them all the same. I'm like, really? What does that mean? Like, what do you mean the same? Like, if you say hi to one, you got to say hi to the other. And they said, kind of. And they said, well, if you treat one, so let's say you buy one a new dress, you have to buy the other one a new dress. If you buy one a car, you got to buy the other one a car. Exactly the same, no difference. Exactly the same. And they're like, as long as you treat them exactly the same, they're following the rules, and you can have more than one. And I was scratching my head. I was like, okay, that's interesting. Like, I have enough time of an opportunity to constantly learn and constantly adapt and constantly adjust, and it's enough of an opportunity to grow trying to work with just my wife. And my wife's amazing. And my own rules, my own values, my own beliefs, my own structure up here in my head, and then learning about hers, sometimes they don't match. I could never imagine doing it with like 4 at a time. That'd be freaking insane, at least in my experience. And so for me, that was a foreign concept because I was like, wow, I'm growing a lot trying to figure out how to do it with one other human being, much less like a whole group. Either way, guys or girls, it doesn't matter how many on either side, but that's impressive and a freaking challenge. Sean, nice to see you from Australia. Rob, snowy in Canada. It's snowing here too. We're excited about tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have some fresh powder. Hopefully it keeps snowing all night. So what's really interesting about this, more so than the concept of how many this or that, it's the realization that not all of us have the same set of beliefs of how things are supposed to go. And one of the most beautiful things I've experienced while traveling the world is realizing there's a lot of different beliefs. Some say you can have more than one partner in life. Others say you can have multiple as long as you treat them the same. Here, depending on where you live and how you go about it, there's certain parts of this country in the U.S. where you can have more than one. There's other parts that are like, nope, one is it. And there's some parts where you can, mismatch in whatever way you want. So what's interesting about that, though, going back to the topic of today, which is staying massively curious about what the person you're sharing life with believes, what they believe, and things you want to think about. What do they believe about family situations? What do they believe about financial situations? What do they believe about communication? If you have a challenge, who's supposed to bring it up first? Who's supposed to go first? Intimacy, connecting with each other physically or emotionally, mentally. Who's supposed to go first? What's the vision in their mind? Is he supposed to go first? Is she supposed to initiate? What happens if someone doesn't feel like it? What are you supposed to do then? And so what's wild is hopefully you take time to sit down, and what I'd urge you to do from this little conversation, for whatever it's worth, is you take time to sit down and say, what have I never asked my significant other about? What about family have I never asked them? What about kids have I never asked them? What about money have I never asked them? What about traveling have I never asked them? What about the future have I never asked them? What about health? What do we believe about our health? What do we believe about maybe future children's health? How do we handle stuff? What if someone gets sick? What do you do? How do you handle it? And just the concept of being deeply, deeply curious about what they believe. And I'll tell you the truth. There's going to be moments where you totally figure out in the moment when they say something, you're like, you believe that? There will be moments that will make your jaw drop because they'll say something you never even conceived as an idea or a thought. And so they'll share something with you and you'll be like, oh my gosh, really? You believe that? And so what's fun is you also want to practice having a filter on your face that doesn't give them any crazy looks while they're sharing with you, but more so just having a filter and having a space that as they share with you, you're open to receiving it. You're open to learning. You're open to taking notes and being like, wow, that's interesting. Now, the next thing you want to do is as they're sharing with you, you might want to ask them, what happened in your life that helped you create that belief? Because here's where things get interesting. Many times our beliefs that we've adopted or adapted over a lifetime, they've come from somewhere. there's an event that happened, there's a person we met, there's something we observed, something in our family, something in our community, a significant emotional event. According to developmental psychologists say after the age of 17, the only thing that reshapes our belief system is significant emotional events. When we're younger, it's what our parents say. When we're kind of in the middle age, it's what our friends do. After that, it's what we experience in the community around us. And then at past 17 years old, the belief is that when we develop past 17, it has to be a significant emotional event, something that either excites us and is very significant in our life, something that jars us emotionally and shocks us, but something that's emotionally, how do you control the face? Poker face is tough. So tell me what you believe. I have no clue. My face goes all over the place. And luckily, my wife wears her emotions on her face. So when I say stuff and she doesn't agree, she's like, so luckily we can talk to each other just by watching and going, oh, she doesn't like what I just said. My thought is just a joke on keeping your straight face. But obviously, if they're open to watching you and observing, then there's a beautiful share that can go on there of communication where they can not only hear what you're saying, but they can also really truly watch and observe how you react to the different bits and pieces of what it is they're sharing, which is really important. Let's see. Rob says, wow, what happened in your life that helped you create that belief? What a powerful question. I'll be asking myself that. It's a great question because this is what we're talking about, curiosity. Someone says, well, I believe, and here's what's wild. You can start off with some broad beliefs. All men are. Do not put the answer in the comment unless it's something nice. But whenever you ask that to a large group of people, you get some really interesting faces. I say, all men are. And you'll see a lot of ladies go, and there's something they believe, but they don't want to say it, or they're willing to say it, but hey, easy guys, like be nice to each other. And then you say the same thing. You ask the women of the group, same group of women, you say, listen, all women are. And you kind of see some perplexed looks where they're like, and you hear all the thoughts that fill your head. And so what's really wild and interesting about that is whatever they believe, here's something to be curious about. I wonder how they came to that belief. I wonder what they saw. I wonder who they are. I wonder what their experience in life was. I wonder who they've been around. I wonder what happened that caused them to believe that, because there's always a story. And here's where you really get to know the other human being. More so than just getting to know what they believe, when you start to ask them, why do you believe that? Now is when you get to know them at a whole nother level. Because then they tell you, well, here's what happened. When I met this person, when this happened, when I was here, when I tried going there, when this experience unfolded, all of a sudden you're like, wow. And now you get a whole new sense of depth and empathy for them in a beautiful way where you're like, wow. Well, now I can understand, because if I would have been through that, I might either A, believe the same thing you do, or B, I might believe something else. But now that I know that's how you came to that belief, holy smokes, that makes sense. And that's where things get really interesting. Nobody's typing because he's so engaging. I don't know about that. That's a sweet comment, but they might not be typing because they're busy. Anyways, I hope it's because I'm engaging. We'll find out. And the concept here is, number one, getting curious about what they believe. And, the easiest things to get curious about, the broad topics, or something we talk about in our book, Live It, the majors. What do they believe about their health? What are the things you should always do in your health? What are the things you should never do in your health? What are the pop fly rules? The rules that sometimes it's okay, but other times it's not. And so, I have a rule in health where I try not to take medicine unless something really, 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 really hurts. Like I had my wisdom teeth out. I'm taking some medicine. That stuff hurts. I was out. Or, Jamie, what's up? Or, I'm sick and told I might die if I don't take it. And that's kind of a hard choice. I saw this beautiful, beautiful article about this 91-year-old lady who was told she has cancer and they have to start the chemo. And she said, screw it, I'm out. And she spent the next, I think it was a year, on the road trip, going to places she's never been, meeting people she's never met before, having experiences she's never experienced, and living life to the fullest. She's like, you know what? At 91 years old, why go through all that crap when I can just live life until I die? So she did. And who knows? Maybe that stuff would have helped her live another 10 years. Maybe not. But one thing that is beautiful is she squeezed the juice out of life when she had that moment. And something that was beautiful when I was reading the article, she was talking about being told you might have only so many days left. If I'm going to have so many days left, I'm going to live fully. I'm going to squeeze every little ounce of life I can. Now, I had a similar experience when I was living over in Uganda. I was being stubborn and not taking the medication they were trying me to take. And at one point, they had to tell me maybe I had 6 days left to live to kind of scare me into taking the medicine. And so at that moment, I remember making that same decision that lady at 91 made, except I was 20. I was like, you know what? I'm going to work my face off, and I'm going to figure out how to align everything in my life so I can just squeeze the juice out of life constantly. Go different places, try new things, meet new people. I want to constantly be moving, and I want zero excuses that's going to stop me. Because if I happen to go out one day, I want to know that I was living fully. I was out there loving deeply. When life gave me the moment to pour into someone, I gave them everything I could in my heart and soul. And when life gave me the opportunity to give or serve, I showed up and I served at the highest level I possibly could, and hopefully leave a ripple that'll matter much longer than me being here physically. That's why I like doing these little chats with y'all. Hopefully they're useful. But that concept of, health, what do you believe about health? Those are some of my beliefs. And that would be interesting if I married someone who went to standard medical school, who believed that the standard medicine is the way to go. Her and I would have a little bit of butting heads because I'm pretty passionate about it too. Now I realize there's a use for both, but I tend to side more on the natural remedies side of it all. So that's an interesting thought process that you have to vet out there in your health. What about, what's another one? Relationships. How much is too much with friends? How much is not enough with friends? How many friends are you supposed to have? How close are you supposed to be? How often are you supposed to chat? Now that seems silly. It's like, oh, are they that controlling? No, you're not asking them the rules. You're asking them what they believe. Because if one partner believes, no, you're only supposed to connect with your spouse every day. You're not supposed to have a friend you talk to every day who's of the opposite sex. Now, if you don't know they believe that, wouldn't it be kind of weird when they start getting really tense every time you text somebody, or constantly trying to figure out what you're doing every time you call somebody? You're like, why the heck are they freaking out? The truth is they're not freaking out. They just have a rule in their head of how things are supposed to or not supposed to happen. Now what's wild is once you know that, you go, oh, I didn't know that. I thought you're supposed to have lots of friends from both sexes and talk to them all constantly, because that's what a good friend does. Now what's funny, that little rule right there can definitely either make or break something long term. It can make something really interesting, at least. Let's see. Jairek, would you agree that all of this has to come from a space of solely from loving oneself? Absolutely. This is a whole different conversation of loving yourself. This is more or less of just understanding what the other person believes about life. Now the reason, and this is, I'm talking about intimate relationships here because it's a little more sensitive for most people and they pay more attention when you talk about it. At the same time though, wouldn't this be important with a business partner? I mean, if you're going to go into business with someone, work with them every day towards a project, don't you want to know how they believe you're supposed to communicate with other people? What types of things you're never supposed to say to another human being? What types of things you're always supposed to say to another human being? Let's say one person believes it's okay to speak your mind and use whatever language you want. The other person believes you're never supposed to use certain words in a business setting. Can you see how that can create a real big rut in the business real quick? One thing goes wrong, someone comes in, what the F happened? Why the F would you do this? And what the S is wrong with you? And blah, 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 blah. And the other person's like, you violated all my rules. And it seems silly and it seems ridiculous, but it's true. It happens. And you see a business partnership explode because someone was unaware of the other person's rules. And it can be as simple as like, hey, you want to do business together? No problem. Let's just have a quick 30-minute chat and get to know each other. What are your rules in life? What are you always supposed to do? What are you never supposed to do? What are the musts? What are the nevers? You want to know these things, just really simple. Communication, money. What if you have totally different rules for money management than your partner does in business? That's a big headache down the road. You want to figure this stuff out early. Going back to intimate relationships, though, what about, let's see. So we talked about health, talked about family or relationships. What's another good topic? I'm going to turn it over to you for a little bit. I'll bring up my comments here. What are some other good topics you think would be very interesting? Satoshi, nice to see you. What are the other topics you think would be really interesting to get to know sooner than later? Oops, I only have a couple minutes left and I got to jump out of here. But what do you think a couple other topics are? So health, communication. That's an interesting one. What are you always supposed to say? What are you never supposed to say? Interesting topic to get to know what your partner believes. Family. How often are you supposed to see family? How do you interact with family? What are the musts that always should happen within family? What are the nevers that never should happen with family? Tom, nice to see you. Welcome. What other things? Money. How you're supposed to spend it. What are you supposed to do with it? What are you never supposed to do with it? What about spirituality? It's an interesting one. What are you always supposed to do in spirituality? What are you never supposed to do in spirituality? Or religion, that concept with your family, with your relationship. What are you supposed to believe? Intimacy. What are you always supposed to do? What are you never supposed to do? What's okay? What's not okay? How is it supposed to go? Now, what's wild on that topic, it's a very interesting topic, because imagine you're going to, you have a beautiful relationship, you're headed down that path, and you're with your significant other, your spouse, and you have a certain beliefs of, hey, in your relationship, when you're making love, there's certain things you should never do, and there's certain things you should always do. And let's say both partners have totally different beliefs and rules about this. Someone touches someone somewhere and they go, no, you're never supposed to do that. Or someone tries something a little creative and they're like, whoa, why would you try it? What were you thinking? Or someone's like, hey, can you do this? And they're like, really? Wow, I didn't even know that was an option. And so I'm not going to go into details there, but that's something you might want to hash out at some point, especially if you think there's a long-term potential for getting married and being together. Lots of people that very first time or so many times, even the first, 10, 20 times, they kind of just assume they know what the person likes, or they try something, or they get a little creative, or they just do the same thing every time because that's the way that they do it, versus actually asking, how is it supposed to go? And again, going back to who goes first, what are the rules? Like, what are you open to? What are you not open to? Meg says, what are the deal breakers? Absolutely. So what are the things that are absolutely nevers? Like, won't stand for it, won't be around it. I know for me, drugs or smoking, like those things are absolute deal breakers. Just because I believe so much in health and I work so hard at it, it would literally just be, it just wouldn't work. And so that stuff just doesn't mesh in my world. It's really interesting. Rob says, I wish I would have had this talk years ago. Asking and finding out is so powerful. It really is. I think for all people, but specifically younger versions of us, it's uncomfortable asking a lot of this stuff because we don't know how to ask it. And the truth is, one other piece that's really important is most of us have never taken time to answer all these questions for ourselves. I mean, when's the last time you sat down and asked yourself, what do you even believe about this stuff? And actually wrote it down. Most of us never do it. My hope from watching this little thing today is hopefully you sit down, take out a pen and paper, and just write down the majors: health, emotions, relationships, finances, business, time. Here's a big one. How are you supposed to use your time as a couple? This is a really big one. What if he believes you're supposed to use it one way and she believes you're supposed to use it the other, or he, she, whatever. But what if one person believes, the way you use your time is whenever there's free time, you spend it together. And the other person believes whenever there's free time, you go hang out with your friends. or you play your sport or go do your hobby. Like, that will get you into an interesting situation pretty quick. If every time there's free time, one person leaves to be with their other person, the other person's pissed that they're not there. So that's a big, time. How do you use it? How do you always use it? How do you never use it? What are you never supposed to do with your time? What if someone believes you're never supposed to waste your time playing video games? And the other person's like, no, when you have free time, you just zone out and play a little Xbox. That'll create an interesting situation real quick. Keep going down that thought. So again, health, emotions, relationships, finances, business, time, and then spirituality or religion, whatever you believe there. And so one thing you might want to do is take some time and just write down, what are your must always rules? What are your must never rules? What are your pop fly rules? The rules where sometimes it's okay and sometimes it's not. And you go either way on it. Also, Meg says, also you want to write down, what are your deal breakers? When it comes to your health, what are your absolute deal breakers? Things that you'd have a hard time being friends with someone if they did these things, much less intimate or having a deep partnership or relationship with them, and even business. If I was in a business relationship and I found out a partner or someone we were working with was massively on drugs, gone. Wouldn't deal with it, wouldn't be around it 1 second. I can't do it. It's a big must never for me. And there's other things too, but that's just one that, it's quick and easy. It's an out for me. Like, nope, not interested. And it doesn't matter how great the deal is or what it is. I'm not interested. It just, I believe you become who you spend time with. And as much as I'd love to be a positive influence, I also won't stand a negative influence in that capacity in any way. So you also want to think, how does this stuff affect your business if you're not in an intimate relationship? But for those of you who are in an intimate relationship, please take time to do this. Hopefully this was useful for everyone watching. If it was, give me a little thumbs up or those hearts or something, or, I'd love to know in the comment section here. I'm going to jump because I have to skedaddle to go get an awesome massage my wife set up for me. So hopefully you all have an amazing night. If you found this useful, click the little share button, spread the love, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye. How do I shut this?